Welcome to a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda.
Good morning. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the April 13th meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Kalo has the dog today.
Come here. Let's look. They got to see you. Our featured dog this week is a 3 to 4 year old female lab mix. She was found on Lowell Street in Elyria. Great temperament. Come here. Come here. Come here. Show them how nice you are. Come here. Turn around. There we go. Good picture. She'll be available for adoption Saturday at 3 o'clock. So if you're interested in a really nice dog, stop down and see us. If not, we've got plenty more to pick from. Come on.
Actually, I think it might be Chow Mix, too. I see some purple spots on her tongue.
Madam Clerk?
At 9:45, Tim Lubbe, Court Administrator for Common Pleas, will be here regards to Public Defender's Office under Resolutions Number 1, Job and Family Services Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
No advances to urban payments, requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Travel.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Welcome back, Mr. Cordes.
You were gone? Just kidding.
I know that. The time away is always important, but it's back to the work. I would need a brief executive session with the commissioners to discuss ongoing labor negotiations. Specifically, I want to talk about the one of the sheriff's contracts, which you just get an update from the board, and also potential hires and in community development. Both of those topics are allowable under the Sunshine Law for executive session. I ask at the conclusion of our regular board meeting today, we go into executive session after those talks. Thank you.
Approve and waive the reading and the same in the County Commissioners meeting minutes of April 6, 2011.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Designate Lorain County Port Authority as an agent of the county for issuing self-supporting housing revenue conduit bonds and authorize certain actions in connections with public hearings and approval of the issuance of self-supporting housing revenue conduit bonds by the Lorain County Port Authority.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Cordes, can you update us on, do we have anything in the hopper, or is this just a blanket?
We do. We're working on some low to moderate income housing conduit bonds, and we
For the neighborhood stabilization?
Well, no, it's
No?
for the it's for a project in Lorain.
Marshall Avenue Apartments.
Correct.
Oh, the ones that we
The
just
one we had
did?
a couple weeks
Oh,
ago
okay.
that gave us the ability to do it.
Oh, okay.
And now we're going to the Port Authority for the bonding.
And the
Gotcha.
Port Authority will conduct all the TEFA hearings so that the board doesn't have to be weighed down with all the TEFA hearings. We don't really make any additional fees at the port per se for these type of bonds, but The TEFA hearings are time-consuming, and the Port Authority can take care of that process. So it's more acting as an agent than anything else for the Board of Commissioners.
So we don't get the 25,000 that we normally get for the conduit
I
bonds?
think the economic development conduit bonds, we have 25,000. We were looking at the fees with the housing bonds, and I see we do get the 25,000 for. It's small. I thought so. Once you come to the podium for a minute, we might as well just get it out there. It used to be we didn't receive any fee for these bonds,
Right.
and I asked that we take a look at them when we did them this time.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Pat.
Because of the fee structure for the Port Authority, we could probably, on this particular set of bonds, it may be up to about $10,000 fees that we can get on this, based on the Port Authority's per percentage point, basis point that we take on those. So it's likely.
Okay,
All right.
Thanks, Pat.
thank you.
Yep.
Anything further?
No, thank you.
Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Under EMA Homeland Security War Contract to Vastu Communications, Inc., Avon, in the amount of $79,840.10 for the installation of antennas, cabling, and radios. One bid was received on February 14th. Issue notice to proceed on or before April 25th, to be completed on or before August 3rd. Authorize County Administrator to notify the auditor to release retainage at completion of project, and will be paid from the EMA Public Safety Grant account.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Under Job and Family, clerk to advertise for sealed bids for security officer. Notice to be in the Chronicle on April 18th and 25th, and open at 2 p.m. on May 2nd.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Clerk to advertise for sealed bids for non-emergency medical transportation. Notice to be in the Journal on April 18th and 25th, and open at 2 p.m. on May 9th.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Under Solid Waste, approve and enter an MOUs with the health districts of Lorain City, Elyria City, and the county to clarify and standardize the reporting requirements under Ohio Revised Code 373457G. District will pay each $60,000 with monthly payments in the amount of $5,000 effective for the program year 2001, and does contain a 30-day cancellation clause.
2011.
I'm sorry, 2011.
We're
Mr.
going
Bailey?
back in time.
Good morning.
Good morning, Keith Bailey, Solid Waste. Yes, this is attempt by my office again to standardize, to formalize our relationships between the agencies and other agencies we fund out of the Solid Waste District funds, and get proper reporting back.
Thank you.
Don't we already give money to the health districts, like 50,000 apiece?
Yes, we
Is this
have
on
been
top
for
of that?
years, but there's no, this is not on top of it.
Okay.
This is their initial funding for the year 2000.
Total funding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll move.
Second?
Anything further? Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Under the Transit, approve the Lorain County Transportation and Community Center Policy and Procedures.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion.
We're going to do a discussion on that, Jim, that the new transportation is available for rent now, and to contact your office.
Yes, certainly, Commissioner, we can have a discussion on it. I hope that the board had an opportunity to at least peruse the sampling that we put into business. The fees and the structure are similar to those used in the community right now by places that rent halls and meeting rooms and those types of facilities. Right now, until we see what the business model is going to look like, we're going to attempt to do it with in-house resources, within limited availability. I think that we adequately addressed all the issues with use of the building, but I do anticipate situational events occurring that will cause us to have to develop additional strategies and standard operating procedures. But as a baseline to get moving, I think that we're probably there. So the Transportation and Community Center is now officially open for meetings, events, and we do have a designated in-house caterer to handle but the catering needs in the facility. And we'll take a look at it in 6 months and see how it's making out, modify from there. So if anybody wants to meet, they can call Sandy at 329-5760, and she'll be booking those rooms and trying to work through the issues with the people that want to be there.
We'll figure it out.
Any additional questions, Commissioners, on that or at all?
Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Under the Clerk of Courts, approve and enter a renewal contract with RBC Inc. for the collection of its outstanding debts from delinquent accounts effective for 1 year and contains a 30-day ring cancellation clause. There is no cost to the county, and RBC has assisted in collecting over $52,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Under the Sheriff, authorize Lorain County Sheriff to apply for the DARE grant in the amount of $20,794, which represents 50% of the DARE officer base salary for the 9-month school year. Local match is $20,794, which will be paid from the Sheriff's salary account. Application is due to the Office of Attorney General by May 2nd.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator?
I just got back in the saddle yesterday, late last night rather, so I don't have too many additional comments, other than say that New Orleans still remains one of my favorite towns, so if you haven't been there, I think you should try to get there at least once while you can still enjoy it. It's a lot to do here, so I'm glad I got back to the work. Thank you.
Mr. Innes, Assistant County Prosecutor?
Commissioners, I do want to give you an update on 2 pending matters of court action, so I would ask to have a short executive session pertaining to those matters.
Commissioners report.
Well, first, there's going to be an event at the airport. I believe it's May 21st. They did a little commercial, which I'm going to have Ernie. Can you put that on the screen, Ernie? Thank you, Ernie. So we have something interesting and fun to attend on May 21st. Free plane rides. If that's not, if that's not enough to get you out to see the airport, I don't know what will. So hopefully that'll be a successful event. Also, the sheriff has a prescription turn-in drug program. It says the Drug Task Force, along with participating departments, will be holding a prescription turn-in program on Saturday, April 30th from 9 to 3. This is an opportunity for you to safely dispose of any no longer needed medication. No personal information will be asked, and please remove all prescription labels from your medication bottles before arriving. All medications will be held by law enforcement officers until they can be safely disposed of. And there's so many places where it's going to be available for the drop-off. I'm going to have that posted. I'll have Hal put it on. And then also, if you could run that commercial as a trailer until May 21st, I'd appreciate that as well. And I believe that's the end of my report.
Tom, do you want to go next? Because I've got a pretty extensive report here, and then we'll go into the public defenders because Tim Lubbe should be here shortly.
And no report right now.
No report? Okay. Busy week. We're going to hold a discussion on possible public defender's office and establishing a public defender's commission. I met with the judges and a person from the public defender's office last week on Thursday, which prohibited me from attending. I was asked to testify in Columbus under House Bill 153, impact of the state budget on county government. I've got some discussion on that. Also, we had NOACA last Friday. I attended. Our executive session was just meeting with the people who are going to help us find our next assistant executive director to hopefully replace Howard Mayer, who's in pending retirement next June. On Monday, I did the Hastings ditch viewing in the rain. It was a nice day, but it looks like we came with some type of resolve. Correct, Jerry, after you met with the engineer's office and the
Yes, I have, Commissioner.
township that afternoon? So it looks like we're going to be able to forward with that. Shouldn't be a
Yes, we're
problem.
going to make some modifications that I think will save the landowner some expense there.
Okay, and be able to move it. This ditch is really in bad shape. I mean, it was up to the top and it's full of trees. It looks like a forest. In relationship to our budget going forward and the cuts that we're taking here, just so everyone has an idea of what's going on at the state level, the County Commissioners Association has been arguing that county government's taking too large of an impact on this. The state's got about a 17% shortage, and they're looking at county government to absorb 30% of their hits. The breakdowns being approximately 5% this year, next year 31%, in 2013 a 33% reduction to what we get out of our local government funds. And we've brought some issues forward that we would like to have addressed, anywhere from the tangible property tax, but also issues are the TANF and child care funding, reduction of adoption assistance, sending it down to the local level, the state health pool, where they're saying if local governments, you might want to listen to this, Jim, in the legislation stating that if local governments don't participate in a new state health pool, they can't have their own self-insured unless the Department of Administrative Services approves it. And if you don't participate in the state pool, they'll reduce your local funding.
Well, you know, we have most of the smaller political subdivisions in Lorain County already in a consortium, and we've been doing it for close to 20 years and doing it rather successfully. I don't know why they would mandate that we had to do something.
Oh, also on top of it, if you're less than 2,500 employees in your health care plan, you have to automatically go to the state health.
We're less than 2,500. We're about
That's why I brought it
1950.
up.
About 1950.
So, I mean, that's a major concern that the CCAO is fighting about. Why should we have to jump into the state's mandate, or they give us approval, we gotta say pretty please? And they'll let us keep our health care going, even though we've done it very successfully and, you know, done cost savings. The reduction for the OSU extension, reduction for soil and water, I don't see Nancy Fanai here, but that's a major one. They've offered us, you know, a list of possible relief, anywhere from casino revenue if that ever goes forward. The pension contribution, which is back and forth on the employees paying 2% more and the county paying 2% less. The county coroner, which we've had issues with trying to fund, actually him charging fees when he has to testify in court cases. They're also recommending in House Bill 153 furloughs, modified work weeks, county centralized services, shared services among political subdivisions, court reporter fees, changing that structure, that the court reporters, everything will be recorded. I don't know if all of our courtrooms are available for that or the ability to. Tim can probably tell me if we can or can't in that discussion. And we've asked for some new items recommended inclusion in the bill. Number one is doing the public defender system reform to save county tax dollars because of our indigent attorney fees. Allowing us the ability to do additional health and wellness plans and not have to participate in state government. Use of special revenue funds, which we've all talked about. Data board IT department consolidation is one of the major ones on the thing, Tom. But we've worked out a schedule asking for some elimination or modification of unfunded mandates. Prior to the House or the Senate passing anything, we require a fiscal impact statement on all legislation prior to it being voted. What's it going to cost local government when they pass these laws? I think that's a major one, because I don't know how many, over the years, we've gotten unfunded mandates. They send us down what we've got to do, from concealed carry weapon to sexual offender notification. They never send a check alongside it. Again, the public defender's right up there, because that's a large cost to county government. Elections, on how they're going to be paid for. Should the state just take that over? They mandate us, say they need more money. We just have to write them a check with no part of the process. We have no involvement. So if we have no involvement, why should we participate? Let the state handle it. Reimbursement for health department office space. The funding of mentally handicapped children as the state cuts back. a hot topic that's been here is the Veteran Services Commission, Budget and Administration, and the ability to add millage to cover that since it actually comes out of the county's inside millage. Our mandated Chair of Human Services, the sentencing reform, which is a large one, and the sheriff isn't here today, that we have to talk about as they're pushing down this new community control, where felony 4s and 5s will never go onto our state prison system. They're going to revert back down to us locals to have to maintain. So all they've done at the state level is gotten rid of their costs and put it on our back. And as I've heard say down in Columbus, well, you guys have the ability to tax. So one of the issues we've asked for to allow us to add additional revenue is,
Hold on, Ted, I'm sorry. They said that we have the ability to tax?
yep, it was said right in a committee meeting.
I've
Right
heard
out
that
of the
before,
budget.
too.
Yeah, the OBM.
Yeah, that goes, that goes against what was actually put in the paper.
Nope.
That we're not supposed to tax.
That's what the governor said. That didn't say what his staff has said, what the people through the department said. You have the ability to pick it up. Came out of the OBM meeting, the Office of Budget Management.
Okay, all
Larry
I read
Long
that
was there when
too.
it was said. Larry Long was there when it was said.
right.
But giving additional county permissive sales and use tax authority, which Lorain County really doesn't need because we're so far under the radar, doesn't matter, but a lot of counties are topped out. Helping raise the motor vehicle license tax authority, so there's additional funds available. And then redirection of lodging tax, which has always been a discussion, the ability to raise the lodging fee. They're also asking for giving us the ability to do some structural changes through the Commissioner's office, multi-county regional service delivery models. They've pointed out 2 coroners and dog wardens, especially for small counties where you have populations of 19,000, 23,000. They've got these staffs where they could combine those services. We've already moved forward on placing tax map under our auditor and funding it with real estate assessment. I mean, we're ahead of the curve on a lot of these asks. And then reform of the misdemeanor court system. So, I mean, we're looking at some major budget revenues. And I know we've been talking about little things as we go, you know, $1,300 in coffee. Commissioner Kokoski and I a couple years ago talked about commissioners' salaries. And I'm prepared to actually offer that the commissioners to the rest of this year in 12 if needed. We took 10% from our departments trying to figure out how we're going to do that. I think we should just take the 10% from ourselves also and return it to the general fund. I don't know what the discussions are or concerns, talk, if anybody would be willing to do that. I mean, we don't need a resolution to do that. I'd like to move forward with it though, and I'm looking for discussion from my commissioners because I don't think our savings are going to be $1,300 coffees and newspapers.
Yeah, now if you want to bring a resolution, I'll back it.
So will I.
All right, we're going to move forward, 10% return to the general fund of our salaries.
Yep.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Kalo?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Appreciate that. And I think we have to start looking after we do the public. If you give me a couple more minutes, Tim, I'm sorry to hold you up. As we go through with the Public Defender's Office discussion, it was a very good meeting. We've got to start out. We can't just do a Public Defender's Office. We have to start with a commission first. It's 3 appointees from the Board of County Commissioners, 2 appointees by the judges. And I believe that would be Judge Walder doing the appointing as the presiding judge. The probate judge is actually in charge of that. So I think it's really important we go forward on the commission to see if we have any cost savings. It's going to be very time consuming for the people we ask to go through this, but we have to find a way of saving our indigent attorney fees until the House and the Senate and the Governor's Office find a way to make us do this and to reimburse us more or to take the load off the local government. This is a big part of it. And I don't have my budget numbers handy. Jim, were we about $1.8 million indigent attorney fees last year?
1.4.
Our local?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you counting both domestic and common pleas?
Right, total.
After the reimbursements?
Yeah,
I'm not
so-
counting the reimbursements. I'm just talking about the actual cost.
Our actual expenditure 1.4 then, Jim?
And then we get a reimbursement of what?
35%.
35%.
35% last
I
year.
actually thought our number was a little higher, Commissioner.
I
Right,
just
I
got
was gonna say.
that information from Lisa yesterday.
That was our general fund expenditure.
Yes.
Okay. With no
1.4 million in indigent attorney fees for last year, total.
I
Okay.
believe we were.
You want to go get Lisa and
Here you
verify
go.
that?
Tim, sir, hey, Tim, let's go up here and start the public defender so we have that.
Before we do, I just want to clarify something because the public may not understand this. Because now that Ted brought up, thank you, brought up the fact that we're going to take a 10% pay cut. Our employees did not take a 10% pay cut. We cut our personnel department or the personnel line item, but our actual employees did not take a 10% pay cut. So I don't want you to think that we've been, not willing to do that all this time when our employees, did. So our employees have not taken a pay cut. I just wanted to clarify that. A lot of people may think, well, that we're just going to follow suit what we did to our employees, but that's not the case.
Correct, Commissioner. What it does, though, since we have to balance with 10% less payroll cost, our people are taking on more of a burden with their job, taking on other responsibilities, so.
That's the additional 10%, just want to clarify that, right? Is that what your proposal?
What?
10%?
Just to our pays, not to our staff.
Well, we had the 10% cut for our budget. the gen-
Correct.
And then an additional 10% with ours.
Our
So-
personal
Our
salaries.
Personal salaries, correct.
Right, okay.
About $150 a week, I'd figure off the top of my head.
Okay.
Did you want Lisa?
No, I thought this was this, okay.
No.
He's got the numbers. I didn't have them handy. I had them, but they're on my desk. Good morning, Mr. Lubbe.
Good
Long
morning,
time no
Commissioners.
talk.
Yes, I know. You've been a very busy man. Commissioner Kalo asked me to come over here today to relate what occurred last week. We had a representative from the Public Defender's Office come down and speak to the court, and they asked for a representative from the Commissioner's Office, and Commissioner Kalo attended. It was from our perspective, a fairly instructive meeting. You guys were talking about some of the numbers. At least what the Public Defender's Office related, and it's in the information that I provided you, they had figures as far as expenditures for indigent defendants in the neighborhood of $1.7 million. Now maybe
Who gave you that
this is
number?
the Public Defender's Office. So
Right.
this is
See.
what they are representing that Lorain County billed last year. Now, maybe when you say 1.4, that's part of that pot, well, I'm sure it's part of it, but there may be other components of it, whether that includes the domestic relations, whether that also includes the municipal courts. So there may be additional funds when you guys say 1.4 that are not part of that pot.
Well, we just went to go, I asked clerk to get Lisa to verify what she gave me
Got
yesterday.
it. Yeah, it would be interesting to see what, of that 1.4, what is included in that and what perhaps is not. But according to the Public Defender's Office, they had a figure of about $1.7 million. And they also represented that number has been fairly flat, you may recall, Commissioner, for the last 3 years. So for the last 3 years, they've indicated that Lorain County, not just the general division, but all courts in Lorain County have expended about $1.7 million in indigent defendant fees. And again, that's just for the attorneys, that's not the professional services that are associated with those as well. So we had the meeting. Like I said, it was fairly instructive from our perspective. This is, about every 10 years, they come down and do a presentation. The last time they were here was in 2002. One of the things that was most interesting is that the numbers have always been fairly huge, in the sense of the proposal to put a public defender's office in Lorain County has been
Lisa.
very, almost
Lisa.
universally, the
Excuse us
cost.
a minute, Tim. I think
sorry.
Lori wants to ask our
Yeah.
budget director a
Okay.
question.
Tim, I told them that you had given me a breakdown of 1.4 million in indigent attorney fees yesterday, and they're saying that we had 1.7 million. So I think he's asking what,
Does that include your expert fees and professional
No, it
services?
doesn't. The 1.7 is what the public defender's office is saying. That's not my number.
Right, the public defenders brought us up and said we spent
And that could be-
1.741 million.
Okay, that quite possibly could be also, I ran the report from January 1 to December 31st, but the way that they reimburse us, they run 4 to 5 months behind, so it could be when it was actually submitted to them, I'm
Okay.
thinking.
And they're also on a fiscal year, not a calendar year.
Correct.
and
Correct.
can you also tell them what courts are involved in that what you gave me yesterday?
It's the Common Pleas Court, the municipal courts, there are some domestic in there, and there are some appellate court cases in there as well.
And Muni Court, too.
And Muni,
She said municipal.
correct.
Okay, I didn't hear you say
And what was that number?
It was
1.4.
1.4, a little over 1.4 that the county actually paid out in indigent fees last year.
Right. And so then we get a return of 35% on that 1.4 million, so that brings us down to what, Mr. Kalo, because you are a,
Right, well, that's what I'm asking. Is the 1.4 million our expense and we'll get a 35% return off of that?
yes.
That's our expenses, correct?
Okay, so they're gonna return 35% of that
Correct.
1.4 million. So
Right.
we're 800,000 or 900,000.
I
Out
can
of
look up to
pocket.
see where we're at as of right now. And
As far as
the
returns?
last time that they reimbursed, like I said, they run 3 to 4 months behind on reimbursing us. So I don't exactly know the exact.
We just know that it's going to be 35% of the 1.4 regardless of when it comes in.
No, we don't, the budget building. Could be less this coming year.
Well, I'm just
Right.
saying.
It fluctuates,
If,
you
well,
know.
we've been as low as 25 and
Correct.
26%.
Right,
And now it was
30.
35% the last state fiscal year,
correct,
which would be different than our calendar year, January to December.
right. Because theirs runs June to
Because they
July,
run
or July to June.
July to June.
It doesn't really matter what it is. We're talking about 2011, and we expended $1.4 million, plus we have
That was
a
for
reimbursement.
2010, not to interrupt you, that report I ran you was for last year's expenses on indigent fees.
I mean, 2010, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Was that similar to 2009? I just want to make sure we didn't have a lag in payment, and we have an incurred but not,
Right, they caught up, right?
Right,
you know.
incurred but not reported big bill sitting out there. Sometimes
Can you
it
check
happens.
just a grand total on 2009?
Because I
And come back and give us that number?
I was a little closer to where Tim was. I think that's a number you and I have always talked about, 16, 17.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we're a little bit of lag in that payment.
Well, all we have to do is look at 2009 and see if it's similar to this figure, and then we'll know.
Yeah,
Okay.
average it out.
No problem. Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go check that and come
Okay.
back. Thank you. We have to work with the correct numbers if we're going to do this, be able to figure this out. So, go ahead.
Well,
I'm
and
sorry to
I would
interrupt.
say that information is something that you'll probably, as the Commissioner Kalo related to, there's a statutory process that is involved. If you are interested in doing a public defender's office, the first step is to appoint what's called a public defender's commission, and that commission would, at the end of the day, ferret out those numbers, and they're responsible to report back to the commissioners and tell you the feasibility of this. Clearly, finances is one of those issues, and so they're going to come back and compare the public defender's office numbers to your local numbers, talk to all the courts, and give you information to make that decision. I would say it's very premature. I mean, these are numbers that there really isn't a lot of confirmation on right now. But
Yours or mine? I mean, this is
both.
from our.
But these aren't my numbers. These are the public
I
defender's
know,
office
I'm saying,
numbers.
but
This is what
our
the
numbers
state
are our numbers. They
Well,
aren't, those
I
will
would
not
say-
fluctuate.
Well, I would say that, the public defender, that they're pretty stringent in their requirements. So that's a billing that they've actually received from the county. So I think there should be some interesting discussions that should occur if at the end of the day those numbers don't match. Because
Well, like you said, it could be because our calendar years are different,
Absolutely.
then that probably could be, but if we're continually spending, 1.4, and we're getting a 35% or whatever the refund is on that, then those are accurate numbers.
Well, I will not too further complicated. I will tell you, there are some issues in the reimbursement side. Again, not the court's issue, but something that I've discovered as we started this process is the way it's supposed to statutorily. You're supposed to be reimbursed at whatever the current rate is on each individual case. Okay, that's not what's happening now. They take and combine all the cases. Say, for example, the clerk's office receives, let's just make up a number, $10,000 in the month of January as far as payments on for attorney fees. They then would cut a check to the public defender's office for 35% of that and send it down to Columbus. Well, they don't. The auditor does. What's happening is that $10,000 that came in is a conglomeration of hundreds of cases, okay? And so those cases could be 2 or 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 5 years ago, the reimbursement rate was 25%. So if you're cutting a check for 35%, you've actually just lost 10%. Now, the reason
They
that's-
lose 10%, not us.
No, you do, because you're cutting them a check for 30. You actually have to pay them that money. They pay you money back later on, but you actually have to send the public defender's office money down every month. And personally, I have concerns that you may be missing out on as those rates fluctuate.
It's something we'll look at.
You said they came in 2002, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Were you part of that?
No.
No? All right.
I was,
You
Commissioner.
were, there's a map up in the state of Ohio right now. I don't know if it's on the screen or not. But today we got 40 counties that are currently doing it the way we do. 28 going to the county public defender, 9 with the contract, and 11 with the state public defender. And I went back and when I heard about this in the newspapers with Mr. Kalo and you talking to him about it, I went back to the commissioners and I asked them, or one of the commissioners, and I asked, you know, if this is a great deal, you know, back in 2002, why didn't you do it? And his response to me was, well, I got a couple concerns. I just want to get your take on it.
Sure.
Takes away from the blindness of justice. And the other thing is, okay, we know who's going to select the people. You got the commissioners picking 3 people, the judges picking 2 people. And how big is the department going to be? Where is the cost savings going to come from? Now, this commissioner I talked to, he's a pretty good guy in business. And, you know, they looked at it, and the numbers weren't there, but you're saying it was big numbers back then.
It was high. The numbers that
And-
were presented in 2002
Right.
are higher.
Yeah, we can't hear
you, Tim. Can you
Tim.
turn him up, Jim? Maybe is there a volume on
You gotta
that? or-
speak into the mic.
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
you have to get kind of close to that.
Hello?
There it
It's
is.
Okay,
on.
yeah, it's real close. The numbers that were presented back in 2002 are actually higher than the numbers today, even in
Right.
today's dollars. What they did, again, I wasn't part of that process or that study, but the numbers that they presented now are closer to, according to the Public Defender's Office, their expenditures for Lorain County for the last 3 years are $1.7 million. The proposal that they've suggested as part of their packet is about $1.7 million, 1.8 the first year, $1.7 million in subsequent. Actually, I think it goes down to 1.6.
Correct.
So there's theoretically, according to them, a $100,000 savings.
Can I get some clarification here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember this from 2002. We worked on it for several months. We did not see the ability to capture savings in 2002. That didn't mean that later on in the future that those savings wouldn't materialize. A lot of things affect and influence whether we could move to that type of model and save money. But didn't the 2002 report indicate that at that time we weren't paying out enough that they thought it would be sufficient to sustain a public defender's office?
David?
Who are you asking?
Well, I was talking
Okay,
just
yeah.
generally.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
David stood up.
David,
Right.
can you come up after we are done with our discussion?
Sure.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that we were here too.
Oh, you were here
And-
too?
Yes, we were.
Okay.
And, County Prosecutor Greg White made the presentation, and as I recall at the presentation itself, we weren't getting reports in those days too much, but a great part of the issue, I don't think it was talk about costs. There were discussions about blindness of justice, but there was also talk about how our bar association felt about it in terms of that there are lawyers that are living on the fees and referrals and the assignments and the money that comes in for that. I had come from a place that had public defenders my whole life, and I hadn't realized that people thought having a system of distribution over a wide variety of lawyers who are not all working full-time as criminal defense attorneys was a good way to go. But it wasn't a discussion then about cost savings. It was a discussion about the free market for legal representation.
Yeah, I think that was that end of discussion. The more functional side that we were participating in was, given the need for staffing, infrastructure, et cetera, that we couldn't tease out enough cost savings to make it worthwhile. At very best, we may be able to get par, and there may have been some
Right.
growth in that. I haven't had an opportunity to look at the old study. I knew you were working on this, Commissioner, but the old study didn't indicate at that point that
There
we
were no
needed.
cost savings back then, but they have said through the different systems, as Tom's map shows, there's different ways of doing this. And we can go further in the conversation once we get the budget part down. but there's-
Lisa's here.
Okay. There's
Lisa?
hybrid systems that do a cost
Right.
savings. You don't have an all or nothing deal. And the contract, when you're pointing out, Tom, they're about off the table. They're not going to do that anymore. The contract system is for the very small counties
Right.
who don't have, so they're not accepting anymore the contract
Right,
work.
and I don't want to suggest that at that, because at that point it wasn't there, that it couldn't be there today. I was just,
Right.
there was some talk, and I was confused, because it almost sounded like we didn't do it, but could have saved money at that point. So I think we would have done it. We were really looking at some ability to save and control costs.
I don't think it was even close as far as an economic.
I appreciate that, Tim,
decision.
thanks. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure the public understands our dialogue here. that's all.
Well, back then, they were doing it for a different reason. We're doing it now for cost savings, correct?
I don't know what general reason they were doing it for. I was involved strictly to see if we could save money.
Okay.
And whether it was going to be a cost-effective move for the county.
And at
There
that
was-
time, it was not.
It was not, and there was those influences, though, that felt a higher purpose about talking about it than what we were looking at.
And I
Okay.
think that goes, Commissioner Williams, to your question. This is actually the public defender's proposal. They actually want a public defender's office here. And it is their belief, actually, that our current system is not blind to justice, that they believe, their data says that Lorain County is the largest county without a public defender's office, and that they have concerns from a system of justice perspective that defendants are not as served as well as they would be under a public defender's office.
With the system, I take it they're going to be increasing the rates for the attorneys as well, right?
You know what, they didn't elaborate that at all. I would presume that, I don't want to make any presumptions on that.
Because I believe
This-
that was one of the big things in 2002 as well.
It was also an issue, controlling fees.
Well, this
Yeah.
is, like Ted was talking about earlier, another way of people demanding more on the county and not sending a check. Are they going to give us a bigger reimbursement if we go to the defender's office?
No,
That's
they-
one thing. And then, let me finish. He brought up the fee schedules, and I read about this whole issue in the paper also. And I also read the blogs, and I also read Commissioner Moore's statement about the fact that at that time they were trying to increase the salaries for the attorneys, and because they were underpaid, and we've all agreed, yes, they're underpaid. They're way underpaid according to everything else. But what happened was they started doing continuances, and in big bold letters in his blog, he said, "Stop the continuances." That's where the attorneys, instead of getting a raise, they found another way to make more money, is what was said. So, with this public defender's office, I'm not going to read this whole thing right now, but how many employees do you anticipate that would be enough to cover Lorain County in a public defender's office?
I don't anticipate any, Commissioner. Again, this is the public.
How many do they anticipate that we would need to cover all of our cases?
I think again, there's attorneys that they recommend. There's, I don't know. You'd have to look at
An
the
amount, a
I
number.
don't know, Commissioner. I don't know.
Well, then
Commissioner, the-
why even bother talking about this?
That's what the commission's for. We're not doing a public defender's office, Commissioner. We would be establishing a commission to look at a public defender's office.
Is there going to be a cost for that?
No cost.
Jeez.
The-
Lisa,
This is
can
the
we,
ability to look at establishing a public defender's office.
again, why do we keep studying things and over and over and over and trying to, it's like Dr. Phil says, do things over and over and over and expect different results?
Well,
Why are we going to
10 years
study and
ago,
study
no-
and study?
No offense with your watching
I love
reality
Dr.
TV.
Phil. I love Dr.
No
Phil.
offense with reality TV, but this is 10 years ago. Times have changed,
In-
costs have changed.
Costs for salaries have changed. They've all gone up.
Here's a
Cost of
simple
doing
response
business
for you,
has gone
Commissioner.
up, not
You
down.
ask why we should do this. Don't listen to me. You're concerned about costs.
Right.
If you don't study something, how are you going to? If you want to say the answer is $1.4 million and we can't make any savings, that's your conclusion.
Right. Well, I want to ask Lisa real quickly. Lisa, did you look at 2009, see the total?
2009 total that was paid out was 1.8 million. I can tell you that we got reimbursed last year $800,000, and I looked at December of 2010, we got reimbursed for August, so they are running close to 4 months behind on the reimbursement.
So if you level that out, we're about 1.6 million.
Okay.
I'm going to just
Correct.
level the 2 years real quick. And that's pretty close to where you and I have had discussions previously with regard to, that's why I was worried that we may have had a lag somewhere in between. So cost averaging, let's call it 1.6 over
agree.
the 2 years.
Okay, but then,
1.4,
then bring back the money that we get back.
Again, I don't
I'm just saying, to be able to look at this, right now we have like 40 or 50 attorneys doing these cases, to cover all these cases right now. Not full-time, part-time. So how many full-time people
Commissioner,
would it take?
I don't have a dog in this hunt, okay? What I
Well,
can
I'm just
tell you-
asking the
what I can-
questions.
What I can tell you is that what they do, let me explain the process from the last time we did this, if I may.
Yes.
Because since I was the only one here that participated in it. What they would do is they come in and they analyze the caseloads. They analyze the type of cases, they analyze the cost being paid, and they do make a structural recommendation with regard to the potential need for staffing and what those costs could be. I don't believe at this point in the process that that's been accomplished. Now, I haven't really been working on this with you, Commissioner Kalo. I don't know how far down the road you are.
Just discussion points.
Tim wouldn't decide that, the courts wouldn't decide that. There'd be a recommendation on at least the initial staffing model that would be necessary to assume the workload. Now, one of the problems we did have, and I'll go just an inch further, back in 2002, was that was an initial model, was going to be difficult to control expansion in that model later on. And we had some real thoughts about creating another agency and bureaucracy at the time that we couldn't keep a check on, as we know, with certain costs that are outside of our reach. And it was felt that this may become a problem too. So I'm going to, again, I was the only person here, I worked on it, we worked on it for some time. Tim can't answer those questions right now because we're not far enough down that road.
I'm looking at what they projected as it's on page, they don't have page numbers, and these are their numbers. I think they have some information in here. It says you would have 1 public defender, you would have 2 supervisors, you would have 7 staff attorneys, you would have, now this is under the misdemeanor attorneys, you would have 1 misdemeanor attorney which would service the municipal courts, you would have 3.5 staff attorneys, you would have a office support staff, 1 office manager, 2 secretaries, then they have a separate division for juvenile, 1 supervisor, 4 staff attorneys, a secretary and an investigator. According to their numbers, they're at about 1.7 as a continuing cost for that.
And
that's
that
a
was,
full-blown public defender's office.
That's a
We don't
full-blown.
have to have that. The commission can do.
Correct.
Across the state of Ohio, there are different forms of public defenders. Some can be just common pleas. Some can be just muni courts. It can be a hybrid system with appointed counsel. They did recommend whatever public defender's office you have, capital cases don't get done by public defenders. That goes assigned counsel because of the time that's allotted for that. I mean, 1 capital case is a minimum of $25,000 for 2 attorneys currently under what we pay.
Correct.
And then you have all the professional services on top of that. One of the benefits of having a public defender's office, I made a decision either way, but what they pointed out was they also reimburse up to whatever the reimbursement is, right now 35%, for all your housing costs, supplies. So that's on an additional we don't have, but we don't pay that now because the attorneys do that through their fees. And I know there's all the attorneys aren't looking at this happily. I've gotten the phone calls, and I have a lot of attorney friends. But I said, we have to look at this. If we don't, we're not doing what we should do as budgetary officials if there's cost savings still providing the services. So it's no different than the APA change at the state level, giving us grants to replace 13 employees with 5, no guarantee in 2 years of funding. This is for the people who do the pre-sentencing through the state that they're laying off as of July this year. We have to absorb it at the county level. They're giving us a grant to hire 4 or 5 people to replace 13, correct, Tim?
Correct.
And no guarantee in 2 years there's going to be any more funding for that. They'll have to become county employees to have pre-sentencing done. I mean, so we have to prepare ourselves for everything that's coming out of this budget bill, that we can find some cost savings.
Yeah, I think you
At a public defender at 70,000, actually is going to cost us about 100, isn't it, Mr. Cordes, with all the insurance and things like that?
it'd probably be a little more than that, Commissioner.
Okay, I figured, 20 people at 100,000 would be $2 million, and that's not even overhead costs or supplies or anything else, so.
They actually have those in there. I'm looking, including their total figure, they have 30% overhead costs, 33% benefits costs. They have a,
I think
conflicts
they're low.
cost. I want to be really clear
You
that.
think they're low how? I mean, that's the numbers they have established. These aren't our numbers.
Right.
Commissioner
Do they know how
Kokoski.
much our people pay for, or how much we're paying for health insurance and everything else? Do they know, that's their number, though. Do they know what
33%.
we pay?
Do we pay more than 33%, Jim, in benefits on salaries?
You asked me another one of those questions that has two correct answers, yes and no. It depends on the level of compensation the employee gets. These days, it could be anywhere up to 75%.
Correct, with the lower end employees.
Right.
But they put a 33% overhead on the entire staff that they figured as a model.
I would say it's
the
closer to
ballpark?
35, 40%, but
So
it's
they're
it's
low, I
ballpark.
was
It's
right,
clo-
okay.
Well, again, there's not a right answer here. It depends on where you're capturing the midpoint for compensation, so I don't want to, I know there's a little bit of conflict here. It could be a little higher on the low end and a little low on the high end. It could aggregate out. So, are these? I don't have a copy of what you're looking at. Has this been teased up to 2012 rates? I'm just asking.
I'll have to
I
ask
need look
Mr.
at them.
Kalo, because we just got this, the rest of us just
That's what
got it today.
I got it. That's what I'm going through, so.
One of the things I want to be clear on, that this is not the court desirous of the implementation of a public defender's office. The commissioners have made it abundantly clear that they're concerned about these, and as part of what we feel is our responsibility to make sure that we are accountable for public dollars that are entrusted to us, we are encouraging and facilitating the examination of this. Ultimately, if the commissioners desire not to appoint a commission, that's the commissioner's decision, not ours. The commission's job, there's no cost to the taxpayers. These are services that the commission ultimately performs on behalf of the county. They look at this. They're going to report back to the commissioners as to whether or not it's viable or not. It's then the commissioner's decision whether or not you want to fund it. Simple as that.
I mean, I'm glad that you're coming here and you're looking for ways to reduce costs. Are you willing to work 8 hours a day?
Commissioner, I work more than 8 hours every day.
Well, I'm saying you turned that down. Are you willing to go back, have your people work 8-hour days?
Commissioner, you asked me a question. I responded to your question. I
Okay.
personally work more than 8 hours every single day.
Commissioners,
Ju-
if I might, at the risk of revealing my age, I was here back when we looked at this in the well, I wasn't here. I was actually a defense counsel when we originally looked at this back in the 1980s. And if you notice the map, what you find out is volume has a lot to do with the economics of it. The higher the volume is, the more benefits you get by consolidating into a public defender's office. When we looked back at it in the 80s, there was a wide gap, and we found that there was an actual sizable savings by continuing to have it done to individual attorneys. When you looked at it again in 2002, that gap had closed, and that may be the case now. If you noticed on that map, the bigger counties, Cuyahoga, Hamilton, Franklin, where they have a high volume, it justified consolidating into a public defender's office. And on the justice end of it, and our local bar association will take the position that consolidating into a public defender's tends to get into the assembly line type way of doing things, whereas our local bar takes great pride in having individual lawyers having one-on-one contact with their clients. And as strange as it may sound, back in the 80s when Greg White came forward, that's what he said. Even as a prosecutor, you have a responsibility to maintain the system and make sure people charged with crimes get adequate justice, and that's what we said back in the 1980s. But it is a moving target here. The public defender's offices will argue that we have greater expertise because we have people constantly doing this, and you don't have to train, new lawyers. So there's the reason the numbers change, and I think you're going to find out that the greater the volume, the more likely that the public defender's thing is going to benefit you.
The other thing is, regardless of what the board decides to do, all these things need to be relooked at periodically, and so that the public understands that we are looking at cost constraint measures, whether the savings can be teased out now or whether we have to wait a few more years. We are actively either innovating or relooking at things we did before to see if the time is ripe for cost savings. And I think
Yeah,
that's necessary.
and I kind of find it amusing that now the judges are coming here with an idea to save money, but they are the only ones that weren't willing to take the cut when everybody else took a
Commissioner,
cut.
I don't think
I've
that's
been
that's
discussing
warranted.
this for almost a year with the judges and prosecutors and got to 2002. I brought this up in the past when we've been talking that we're looking at, public, how to save indigent attorney fees. I have brought that up for a year back and forth, our concerns, correct? How many times do I ask you, what do we spend on indigent attorney fees, Lisa? That's one of our major, that we have no idea. We have no hard costs. That number fluctuates. Just said 1.4 million to 1.8 million. I mean, you're looking at 25% cost increase year to year or drop off and on. This is not something new. It's been talked about when Commissioner Blair was here. It was talked about at the time. She didn't want to move forward on it. I don't think we had a whole lot of discussion about it. I was working through Judge Zaleski and the judges. As I said, through this entire budget process, we need to sit down. We know we've got to make cuts. They've got to be major cuts. We've got to make cuts. But we have to see what services we're going to discontinue as we make those cuts, what we can or can't. To just heavy-handedly cut across the board, to take Judy Nedwick's
We had to
office-
cut deeper in our department because the judges wouldn't take their cuts. Do you realize that?
Commissioner,
So now
I'm
you're
aware
gonna,
of the budget. I'm not defending anybody, but I'm saying as we make the cuts, and if you'll let me finish, to take Judy Nedwick's budget at 5%, which extrapolates to $20,000 or $25,000 in payroll and personnel, does she have one employee that works benefits, overheads, and costs for $25,000? You might as well cut her to 40 or 45 and make a constructive cut that she had to eliminate one employee, and her numbers in East gets $500,000 budget. So to take the 5%, you really didn't accomplish anything other than taking away a budget, and then now she's got to move another
right,
monies around.
exactly, and that's what
to make it
everybody needs to
happen.
do.
Right, but
But
Mr. Kalo, you presented the numbers, and then you weren't even willing to look at the numbers.
I said
You
we
sat
were
on the
discussing.
sideline.
No, I didn't sit on the sideline. I'm discussing with elected officials. I've met with the auditor. Have you spent the time to meet with the elected officials on
Well,
how
it-
they run their offices and what they can dispose of? That's where I think we need the public dialogue at. What can we get rid of?
We've had
Right, and I
public
think you need to
dialogue.
have the dialogue with us instead of us finding out what's going on in the newspapers and what you're
What do you
doing.
mean in newspapers? I've had this,
We're-
I keep bringing up the CCAO stuff. I told you I was at the
You
Jails
keep-
and Prisons
okay.
Committee last week.
I'm just saying,
Discuss of
the
indigent.
public defender, I found out in the Chronicle.
Me too.
You did not tell me anything about it. And when, okay, I'm going to calm down just a little because, the thing I don't appreciate is when you do stuff like this and you come into my office the first day and you say, you know what, I don't want any surprises, and you keep hitting us with surprises.
What
Yeah.
surprises?
The
I'm talking to
10% cut on our
elected
salaries, the public defender last Friday, what other surprise you want to talk about?
They're not surprises, Commissioner.
A 10%
They're
cut in our
different.
salary, that's $150 a week.
I understand what it is, Commissioner.
Really?
But we're taking 10%.
That's not a surprise?
You said we have to show leadership. We have to take a
Right.
surprise.
But
We have to
I
take
didn't say we had to take a surprise.
We have to take the leadership part of it.
Right, and
The
we
way
did
it's been
take the
going up
leadership
there,
part of
because
it.
Here's the communication we had in the past. Things come up across here all the time that I think we have to meet, especially with the budgets. And
Well, when you brought up-
We've taken $12 million in cuts the last 4 years, haven't we?
Yep,
We've
well,
been proactive in cutting.
kind of 12 million, but not, yeah.
Okay, so we're down to the point that we're cutting to the bone now.
Right.
So now we have to know what services are we discontinuing. If it means the prosecutors in their cuts, as Dennis Will said, he's not gonna have attorneys to represent courts, then we know what we're losing there. So you cut appropriately there. If the treasurer's office or auditor's office have cuts they have to make, then they have to be able to tell us what service is not gonna do. And I think the justice system, you've decided the sheriff
We've
and jail
asked
are
them
taking
100
cuts.
times.
Okay. I want to go back to one thing.
Go ahead.
The leadership, okay? You're the president of this board.
Yes, I am.
You need to make sure that you're communicating to us what you're doing and that we're not reading about it in the newspapers. That's my only statement on that.
Why don't you pick up the phone and call me after you saw it in the papers? There are things I've been working on through the state organization, Tom. These are things they're requesting us to do. That's why I went through the entire House Bill appropriations thing. They're asking us to look at all these different processes to find way of cost savings. So,
When you brought up the cut and pay, not to harp on that, but that was a surprise, and you also brought up the coffee at the same time. Like, you were mad that I brought up the coffee last week, so you're gonna one-up me and
No.
bring up a 10% cut in salary.
No, actually,
A pretty heavy hit.
actually, the other part.
I mean, my
that
house,
bothers me, though, is-
that's almost my house payment.
I'm not arguing that, Commissioner. It's not good
So-
for any of us. but
Commissioners, can I
what I'm-
provide you any further assistance?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that, Tim. We'll carry this on
Well,
maybe
you
next week
shouldn't
or the
have
week
made
after.
that big surprise.
Okay. Well,
Next?
Am I going on?
Is, before you proceed,
Right.
is there a next step in this process that we need to be involved in?
Now, I guess at this point, it would probably be, if we want to garner more information, have more discussion on a public defender's office, and move forward with doing a commission. I think we have the responsibility of the taxpayers to look at the commission and let them figure out if we're going to have any cost savings or not.
Well, it would have been nice to get this big, how many page packet of information prior to today's meeting. So let us give us a chance to
Right, that's what's
read
gonna-
this and digest it before I make any decisions on if I want to go any further with it.
I didn't have all this either, Commissioner. I had a short page that said we got to talk about these things, and then Tim got this over to us.
I will, if it's okay with the board, I'll look through a copy too, and then maybe in 2 weeks or so, we can have another discussion on it, give us some time to take a look at the numbers and see, because, again, it wasn't right in 2002, and I'm not saying it's right today.
Right.
But either we need to conclude it or continue it, but I don't think we just need to leave it sitting out there. So maybe in a couple weeks, we can take a relook at it, just like we did with the SOPs earlier.
Right. I don't know if there's any cost savings or not at the end of the road, but it's no cost to the taxpayers to have a commission look at it.
Correct.
So I think if we don't look at it, we're not doing justice to our budget.
Should we put a time on it, maybe the first week of May? We'll bring this up for discussion again.
Yeah, whenever you'd like.
Is that enough time, Commissioner Kokoski?
Sure.
All right. You want to do May 11th,
Sure.
That's good.
9:45, 10 o'clock? Or is it just going to be part of them? We can invite.
Let's go 9:45 and bring Lubbe back.
Tim, are you available on May 11th at 9:45 to come back? And let me know? Thank you.
Candidly, I'm not sure what additional information the board can provide. I mean,
Come on up here, Tim.
I'm sorry. Candidly, I'm not sure what, I'm more than happy to come over. I'm not sure exactly what information I can provide you. The step is, if the commissioners are desirous of pursuing this process, they would pass a resolution. They would then appoint a commission. That commission is comprised of 3 representatives from the commissioners, 2 representatives appointed by Judge Walther, the presiding judge, and then that process just takes its time, and they report back to the commissioners.
So all we need to do is have a resolution to move forward if we choose to do so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Would it help, again, not here in 02, Jim, you said Greg White presented, or did Jerry say Greg
Well,
White presented?
at the
No,
time.
David did.
prosecutor?
At the time we were looking at this, there was also, I stated it as some higher purposes. There's some additional thinking from the Bar Association, possibly the prosecutor's office. Very well, some of the legal community may want to weigh in on their thinking on the issue. There was several streams of information that were, I think they were very necessary to encompass the whole issue. Our position was looking more structurally, budgetary, and the like. I think the attorneys came in and they were talking about a much higher purpose with furtherance of justice and providing the best service possible to consumers. And Jerry, you spoke briefly to that. I didn't really get involved too much with that. I looked at it more from a functionality standpoint.
You know, one of the things I'm curious is about, maybe the statute that currently exists that talks about the formation of this commission didn't exist back then, and so it was kind of more of a grassroots
You know,
process.
Tim, I don't remember the commission.
I'll bet it didn't exist, yeah.
Yeah, that's a little new. I didn't want to say much on it because I keep hearing, I knew that there was a board appointed if there was a public defender. There's a way that the board is constituted with regard to appointments. I was slightly thinking that may have been what you guys were communicating about, because I haven't read this, but if that's an advisory commission, then I think that's new.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So probably what happened back in 2002 was literally where the community had to, various members of the prosecutor's office, the various representatives from the Bar Association had to come together and kind of perform this commission-like function. And so sounds like today, a commission's appointed, they do that legwork. They're going to liaison and touch base with each of those avenues. They're going to touch base with the Bar Association, the local council. They'll go back to get information from the Public Defender's Office, get the finances from the commissioners, and I think then that process will report out to the commissioners as to whether it's viable or not.
So it might have been a total different process at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Do you know what the last county was that went to this program?
I have no idea. I know Butler is getting a lot of information in the press as of late last year. They did some kind of hybrid system, and I think as the commissioner reported, they were kind of the last ones that were grandfathered in.
Okay.
But as far as who the last county that had a public defender's office, I mean, the public defender's office will tell you that. I would recommend, if you're interested, I'm sure contact information's in here. If not, please call me. I'll give it to you. The person that came down that we talked to was Catherine Smith.
Catherine?
Catherine Smith is her name, but you know, they're a public entity. If you call them, they'll provide you whatever information you require. But back to your question, if the commissioners want me to come over, I'm more than happy to. Just let me know.
Yeah, if you could just schedule a time slot for that, and we'll let you know that week
Sure.
if we'll need you.
And that was on the
May
11th?
at
Got it.
9:45.
Thank you.
Today at 2 o'clock is going to be the public records meeting.
You're representing me there today then,
I am.
Teresa? Okay, thank you.
Board correspondence,
Move the reading be waived.
Second?
discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Public comment.
Anyone wishing to address the board this morning?
Don't be scared.
I think Elizabeth's coming.
Gonna talk about the airport? You gonna go fly in a plane?
Elizabeth Rumics, Oberlin. I'm actually more of a walker than a flyer,
Oh.
I suspect, and I don't walk all that fast nowadays either. This is a bit obviously of a tender topic, but in connection with the 10% cut in your salaries, there's a growing amount of anger, I think, among ordinary people, which I count myself, at the cuts that are being made by the state, by the U.S. government, whereas the banks are still getting enormous bonuses.
Right.
I'm not hearing about the state legislators cutting their salaries to any degree,
They
or
have been.
any
There's
of our
legislation,
congressional
Elizabeth.
people. Pardon?
There's legislation, actually bipartisan, Terry Boos and Matt Lundy have it introducced down there.
Well,
It
I
hasn't
wish
come out of
them
committee.
well.
It hasn't come out of committee yet.
Hasn't
I
come out
wish
of
them well.
committee.
But
It will be, though.
the feeling is getting more and more antagonistic, and I think it would behoove the state government and the U.S. government to be a little bit more aware of the people they don't normally hear from before we get anywhere, which I'm sure we won't, near the kind of uproar that you're getting in some of the Middle East countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback on that, if we were cutting our employees' salaries, I would have thought of, brought it up myself, but we're not. All of our employees have been frozen. We've been frozen. We've been trying to make cuts without affecting anybody's salary and all of our union contracts, not cutting their salaries, but making them work longer for what they have, what they're going to get paid. So, this was kind of a big surprise.
Well, you had brought it up a couple years ago, Commissioner. We had discussions. that
did we
were
ever
talking about.
talk about a 10% pay cut?
That's what you would, that's what had been discussed when we had talked before. There's the hallways and stuff when we were doing all these cuts.
And Congress is on recess against us.
Yes, sir. Name and address, please, because you're
Yes.
not a regular,
Rick Kruek from Kipton, Ohio.
Former trustee.
right?
Councilman.
Councilman, thank you.
Councilman, I'm sorry, Kipton's a village.
Well, obviously, the budget's having repercussions everywhere here. And I was just wondering, in response to the governor's dumping responsibilities down to the county and municipal level, is this the governor's version of trickle-down economics? And should we prepare for a deluge, or?
Well, I can't necessarily
What?
say it's all the governor. I can't say that. I think it's also who we've got elected between the Senate and the House. They're doing these proposals alongside with the governor's proposed budget. So, it's quite extensive. It's House Bill 153. You can get it online, Rick, and see all the different. I've got the testimony here that commissioners have presented on where we're arguing. The state's short 17% of their budget. We're expected to take a 30% hit to help them fill that gap and still provide services. And then someone from budget management tells the director of the CCAO, well, locals have the ability to tax. And then as Commissioner Williams said, the governor's saying locals shouldn't tax at all. So, I mean, there's different messages coming out of different departments. You gotta remember, there's the elected officials, the political side, and then there's a bureaucracy that says, well, you can do this. May not be the greatest thing to do, but you can, you know, you have the ability to do. So, I mean, it's parallel tracks, I guess. I guess they never intersect, they just keep running. We need to do this, and then, well, you're able to do this. So, and we know how it's going with the sales taxes the last couple times. Commissioner Kokoski and I both, with imposing, getting refed off and then voted off. We've tried, and again, not to restate the obvious, but 88 counties, we're in the bottom 4 of charging for sales tax, and we're the 9th largest county trying to provide services with a heavy caseload through our judicial system, from the jail, the sheriff's department. We've cut deputies. We've got an offer on the table we should know next week to combine the 911 and the sheriff's dispatch to get 3 deputies back in the sheriff's department. I mean, we've been trying to work through finding ways for cost savings, and we still got the argument, all of us are arguing up here, how are we gonna cut some more? And we have 3 different dynamics of how we think we should do it. So I mean, it's gonna be a very difficult year.
So heavy-duty umbrellas isn't gonna help then, is it? So,
No.
that's just dumping it on somebody else.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Motion to move into executive session is outlined by the county administrator and county prosecutor.
Second.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
This has been a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.
How about a little trash talk about Lorain County Solid Waste Collection Center in Elyria? The Collection Center makes it easy for Lorain County residents with ID to get rid of stuff you don't want going into a landfill. Stuff like hazardous waste, acids, household bleach, oven cleaners, antifreeze, paint, herbicides. Take it to the Collection Center. It's a drive-through, so it's easy to get rid of scrap tires, even if they're on the rims. The Collection Center also takes e-scrap like computers and monitors, circuit boards, microwave ovens, smoke detectors, even household TVs up to 27 inches. No console models, fluorescent lights and ballasts, reference materials and books, fire extinguishers, all kinds of stuff. Drive through, drop off. Just don't bring curbside recyclables, explosives, medical waste, radioactive materials. For what's accepted and not accepted, visit loraincounty.us/solid waste. The Collection Center near Big Lots at 540 South Abbey Road in Elyria is a service of the Lorain County Solid Waste District, a department of the Lorain County Commissioners.
Carpooling, a great way to save on fuel, tolls, and parking. Serving 13 counties, secure and safe Ohio rideshare makes it easy to connect with carpool partners safely. You control information shared. Discuss your destinations and needs through our safe site. Carpooling reduces pollution and traffic congestion, while it lowers stress and gives riders time to read, work, sleep, socialize. 1-800-825-RIDE or register online at ohiorideshare.com. Point, click, ride.
Pedestrian injuries represent the second largest number in motor-related deaths. In the current report by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, of the 812 traffic fatalities for children ages 5 to 9, almost one-third, that's 254, were pedestrian fatalities. These numbers were just very staggering to me in this office. Most of these were from pedestrian crossings, children not educated in crossing streets where there are sidewalks and obviously stoplights, or where there are no sidewalks and there are stop signs. So basically, it was based on the fact that they aren't getting proper education, or they hadn't any education on how to cross streets with sidewalks or without sidewalks. So that's what really got us motivated to look into this and do something about it.
County Engineer's Office is quite proud to announce that the Safe Routes to School program has been initiated throughout Lorain County. We're very excited about this. To help these children from grades K to 4, teaching them to walk the street safely is very important to us. We've seen statistics that quite frankly shock us. Many times we read and see stories of pedestrians being hit by automobiles in Lorain County, and it just tears my heart to see these children from K to 4 part of that. This program is to stop that, to help diminish those type of situations, and to educate these children on crossing the street safely. And we're quite happy to announce that.
Most of our workshop was developed and made in-house. Simulated sidewalks, simulated streets. We have actual working stoplights, the pedestrian crossing signs that actually work, operational railroad crossings. We also have the regular road signs like your pedestrian crossing, your stop sign, your railroad sign. So we have all of these different things that the children can not only visualize, but then we actually interact the children in those situations so they can not only see, but they can use these in their learning abilities on how to cross the streets with and without sidewalks. We've had so many good responses back from the children, and of course it's just like anything else with children. When you ask for volunteers, when you're talking in a group of 60 and you can only have 8, it's amazing at the hands that go up. You know, does anybody want to volunteer? Well, everybody wants to volunteer. We make them go over these skills that we're trying to teach them, not only the volunteers, but the group as a whole. So basically we have the whole class interacting. So if they say left, right, left, behind you, in front of you once, they say it at least 8 or 10 times before the workshop is over. So we've had many teachers and many principals tell us, and we even had one child that came up to us and said, you know what, Miss Spansky, we were going to cross the street the other day and we remembered, look left, look right, look left. So that was very rewarding. And so I think the repetition, the interaction with the children and with the items in our workshop is very important to them and to us. Before you even go into the safety part of it, they're in awe over the traffic light, and then our railroad crossing signals actually work. So they're just like, oh, ooh. And we get up there and we tell them, and we even give them some trick questions. You know, we'll say, well, we can see that train all the way down the track. Do you think we can make it, because you're fast and I'm fast and we can run? And of course they're very enthusiastic and no, we shouldn't do this. So we teach them that in some urban areas you will not have the gates that come down to keep you actually from crossing, that you may just have two sets of tracks, and just because one goes by and the signals stop doesn't mean that another one can't come from the other direction. So we tell them it's very, very imperative that they stay back from the tracks and they wait till those signals stop and to look both ways. And even once those signals stop, to look both ways, and they should never run across the railroad tracks. They should walk and continue to look both ways, because it's not safe and they could fall. They could injure themselves if they're alone, if they're not with someone. It could be very dangerous, because not only could they injure themselves, they may not have help if there is a train coming, because they are so small. And as you know, some of those tracks are very large, and you're talking in kindergarten through 4th grade, some of those children are very small children. The main thing is that we tell them that only you know when it's safe. You have to make that ultimate decision. So make sure that you know that it's safe before you cross those railroad tracks or a street. One of the other things that we cover in the safety workshop, and it's also repeated in our video, children don't have that perception of the miles per hour. It's very dangerous. And the same thing with trains. We tell them that train could take, forever. It's way down there, but we don't know the actual miles per hour. We decided to use videos. The first one is geared for kindergarten and 1st grade, and that is Otto the Otto, put out by AAA.
Hi, kids. A lot of times you have to walk to get to places. And when you're walking, you have to be especially careful of cars and bicycles. Oh no, those kids are walking the wrong way. That's dangerous. I'm going to talk with these kids. Down at the clubhouse, they're talking about the safe way to walk on streets without sidewalks.
I say you can walk across the street anywhere you want, as long as you look first. And don't get squished flat by a car. That's a fairly simple way of looking at safety. There are actual rules and laws for walking. Yeah, but the most important one is you don't get squished flat. Who's right, Maggie? Patrick or us?
I guess in a sense, everyone's right. The main idea is to get there safely, but there are some rules to help you get there safely, like don't run out into the street without...
The second video, we show 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, and it is put together by the National Safety Council along with Honda, and they developed the first humanoid robot.
Hey, Osmo. What's up, Osmo? How's it going? Osmo, this is Michael. Michael, this is Osmo.
How come you're dressed in a robot suit? It's not a suit. I'm a real robot. My name, Osimo, stands for Advanced Step in Innovative Mobility. I'm the world's most advanced humanoid robot. I can walk forwards, backwards, and even climb stairs just like a human. So, what's the first rule about crossing the street?
Stopping at curbs.
Correct. First, always stop at the curb. Then make sure no cars are coming. You want to look left.
It's clear.
Then right to see if any cars are coming from the other direction.
That's clear too.
Cars move fast. There might already be a new car to the left. So look left again.
Car coming.
See what I mean?
Okay, he's gone.
Kids love this. They relate to Osmo, as well as the younger children relate to Otto, who is an animated automobile. And he tells them about crossing streets. Osmo does the same thing, and he actually goes through with the children and tells them how to cross the street at an intersection with a traffic light, with a pedestrian crossing. He also teaches them how to cross because a lot of children at schools have parked cars. He goes over the issues of how to cross when there are parked cars. So he does a number of different things, how to cross the street when there are no sidewalks. So they both cover the basic skills. One is just geared a little bit more for the different age groups.
I think it was really nice because they had a real-life robot talk to you about safety, and you got to actually do what he said was safe. He said when there are parked cars to make sure there are no drivers in before you cross the street.
It's a good idea because, like I said, the kids could walk through the whole process of crossing streets with the crosswalk, without a crosswalk, at the intersection. What happens if you're crossing in between two parked cars? Those are things that parents don't teach their kids. They go to Safety Town and they learn left, look right, look left again, and they go. And even my own son, who's a kindergartner, he just did Safety Town, and I still catch him flying across the street. And all I have to do is say, Matthew, remember Asimo? And he stops and he thinks and he does all the steps that he was taught in the video.
It was a great refresher, especially for them, now knowing, what to do and kind of even additional things that they may not have been told or considered before.
Most of the kids did their little safety program back when they were getting ready to go to kindergarten. They start out learning all those safety rules. Then as time goes on, if you don't reinforce those safety rules and keep telling them, just like we do as adults, we think we're safe. We don't have to follow those rules anymore. We can do what we want. We can take a chance and run across the road. And I think this program was very good at reinforcing the fact that even though we're growing up, we still have to be careful. We still have to follow the signs. We still have to follow the railroad crossings, especially around here in Amherst. We tend to have a little trouble with the railroad crossings and kids wanting to play on them. So I think it was a good review. I think it was done in a fun, learning way, and the kids really enjoyed it. We were very happy to have everyone here at St. Joseph's School.
In 2009, Mr. Carney felt that if we expanded the program and went into the technological era, that we could cover more schools and help more students. We felt that second, third, and fourth graders would get much more out of it and enjoy it if it was on a computer. We use one disc that's called Walk Smart for second and third graders. It teaches the children where to walk. It teaches them things that they should know about traffic signals. And the third part of it is watching for cars. The fourth grade disc is called Safer Journey. That is in a three-part section with a fourth part that's added called Library, so that if they want to go back in as fourth graders and actually look up anything that they just viewed, it will give them a description. Each one allows the student to interact on the computer individually.
While you move the mouse back and forth. Try it.
We thought the student will look at it, because they love to work on computers, so that they would look at it as fun and a game, and each student can work at their own level or at their own pace. Our response has been amazing.
They enjoy being on the computer, so I think just by clicking and being able to listen and observe those things, it's more interactive with them. This program is teaching the skills of being more observant as they're crossing the street and being more aware of what's going on around them.
It makes me work harder. We have to guess if the cars can come from which way. Gets my brain on learning. It helps me learn how to cross streets and how to watch for cars.
You have to look both ways when you go across the street and everything, because it would actually teach me something.
Sometimes we just think that students know exactly where they should be walking. There's a sidewalk and we know that they should cross at the light and look both ways.
It tells you what to do and what not to do in the street.
This just reinforces, because sometimes the students don't know all of those things. They haven't always been taught. They are much better off for being part of the program.
If it saves one life, we feel like we've made a contribution. It's our way to give back to the communities.
In 1787, the Continental Congress organized the lands from the Ohio River to the Mississippi into the Northwest Territories. In 1803, the first of these territories to become a state was Ohio. Ohio was in turn divided into various land grants, including the Connecticut Western Reserve in the northeast corner of the state. The Western Reserve included the area that is today Lorain County. As Ohio gradually increased its counties to the present 88, the land we know as Lorain County went through several changes. Until 1810, the area was split between Geauga and Portage counties. When the area was being organized into Lorain County in 1822, it was created out of land from Huron, Cuyahoga, and Medina counties. At the time of its birth, Lorain County included Olmsted Township, now in Cuyahoga County, Spencer and Homer Townships, now in Medina County, and Troy and Sullivan Townships, now in Ashland County. This map illustrates the county as it appeared at the time of Ohio's centennial, and although some of the townships have been absorbed by incorporation, it also represents the shape of Lorain County today. Let's take a brief historical look at each of Lorain County's 21 townships. In 1807, the Calvin Hoadley and Herman Bronson families of Waterbury, Connecticut, began the settlement of Columbia. After a 3-month trek, the pioneers arrived in their new homeland in time to celebrate Christmas. The Bronsons, including their 7-month-old son, began that winter sheltered by their overturned bobsled wagon, converted into a frontier lean-to. The mouth of the Black River also saw the beginning of its first settlement in 1807, when Azariah Beebe established a trading post for Nathan Perry. This area, which 20 years earlier had seen a short-lived Moravian mission, would gradually grow into the village of Charleston in the township called Black River. Years later, this township would be removed from county maps because of the incorporation of the city of Lorain. Charleston adopted the county's name of Lorain when the city was incorporated in 1874. The dramatic growth of the city was spurred on by the expanding fishing and shipbuilding industries. In 1894, when Tom Johnson brought his steel mill to town, Lorain's destiny to be the county's largest city was assured. In 1813, the township of Ridgeville was officially organized. 3 years earlier, members of the Beebe, Terrell, and Root families had established this new settlement they called Rootstown. The change to Ridgeville was decided upon to indicate the sand ridges that passed through the area and provided transportation routes and fertile farmland. The area around the intersection of Butternut Ridge and Roots Road, first called Briggs Corner, was by 1880 known as Fields Corners and was the site of the town's water well. With the growth of the city of North Ridgeville, the township of Ridgeville was incorporated out of existence. In 1810, Silas Wilmot, along with Asa and Ira Morgan, erected a cabin on Butternut Ridge, and the community later called Eaton Township was begun. Wilmot married Chloe Hubbard of Ashtabula, and they were given the cabin, thereby becoming the township's pioneering couple. When Ridgeville Township was organized in 1813, it included Eaton, which was at that time called Holbrook. While the area was still a part of Cuyahoga County, the township of Eaton was separated from Ridgeville. Its first officers were elected in 1823, while the township was in transition to the new Lorain County. Amherst's township's founding can be traced to one Jacob Shoup. After first settling on the Black River, he moved in 1811 to the Beaver Creek. By 1815, he had erected a grist mill and the area's first distillery. Whiskeyville, today the intersection of Routes 58 and 113, earned its nickname as a center for the production of this important pioneer commodity. As the primary community of the township developed at the Old Spring, it came to be known as Amherst Corners. By 1836, the name Amherstville was recorded in the county offices, and in 1873, the town was incorporated as North Amherst. In 1909, the U.S. Postal Service had to choose between the villages of North and South Amherst. They chose the former, which then became the official and present-day Amherst. In 1917, in the northeast corner of the county, the township of Avon became another of Lorain County's 21 townships to vanish due to city incorporation. In 1814, Wilbur Cahoon had arrived from Montgomery County, New York, to become the first to settle in what was then Troy Township of Cuyahoga County. The farming community grew around its power source, the French Creek. Development along the interurban line would incorporate the northern part of the township into the city of Avon Lake in 1911, with the remainder of the township becoming the village of Avon in 1917. It was families such as the Burrell, Day, and Roots who established themselves in the Sheffield area in 1815 and 16. The township of Sheffield would not actually be created until 1824, when the newly elected Lorain County Commissioners made the township one of the first acts of their administration. The land had been primarily in Cuyahoga County prior to the 1822 reorganization. The southwest corner of the township was in Huron County and is today the only place to find a small section still called Sheffield Township. The remainder of the area has been incorporated, like its neighbor Avon, with the north becoming Sheffield Lake and the south the village of Sheffield. In 1816, Colonel Henry Brown of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, purchased a large tract of land known as Number 6, Range 19. Mr. Brown would later name the township after himself by simply adding Helm to his family name. Like the Old Saxon Ham, the suffix meant home. The Deacon Shepherd family were the first settlers when they arrived on July 4, 1817. The village of Brownhelm Mills, located in Benjamin Bacon's Mill Hollow, was one of 3 communities to develop. Bacon's Corners, or the center, was 3 miles east of the hollow, while just west of the hollow was Rugby, where stores, a church, a school, and the post office were located. The first settlers to the Grafton Township area were Jonathan and Grendall Rawson in 1816. 10 years later, the Rawsons were forced to build a grist mill, or forfeit their land under their original agreement with the Western Reserve Land Company. Railroads and quarries were the greatest influence on the growth of the village the locals called Rawsonville. The quarrying industry in particular was responsible for the influx of French-Canadian, Welsh, Irish, Polish, and German immigrants. In 1877, when the village was being incorporated, the name Rawsonville was dropped in favor of the railroad station name of Grafton. Originally a part of Elyria Township, Carlisle was settled in 1816 by John Bacon of Windham County, Vermont. When the new Lorain County was being organized in 1822, Carlisle Township became its own entity. LaPorte developed as the township village with Phineas Johnson as the first postmaster and hotel owner. In 1840, Anson Brayman's Carlisle Nursery became the first of its kind in Lorain County. Quarrying was another important industry of the township, as the sandstone blocks were used for city buildings as far away as Toronto. Founding father Heman Ely owned over 10,000 acres of the land that would be developed into the township of Elyria, and the city, which also bears his family name. In 1817, Artemus Beebe headed a work crew that came to establish a new village at the Y of the Black River branches. Mills were constructed and the main street cleared. Beebe's crew also erected a home for Mr. Ely at Broad and East Bridge Streets, and a home for himself across the street, which became the Beebe Tavern. Both structures avoided demolition until well into the 20th century. In 1822, Mr. Ely spearheaded the movement to create Lorain County. He donated the land for the county courthouse, thus influencing the choice of Elyria as the county seat. Mr. Ely's little village would develop into a city with a varied industrial base as well as the center of government for Lorain County. Simon Durand came to America as an interpreter for Revolutionary War hero French General Lafayette. Durand remained in the new nation and in the winter of 1817 moved from New York State to the 160 acres he had purchased south of Brownhelm. 10 years later, the population of the area was enough to support the formation of a new township. With the southern portion ceded to Brighton and the northern portion annexed from Brownhelm, the township of Henrietta was created in 1827. Although New England families represented the majority of settlers to the area in 1818, one of the pioneers was William Welling of Montgomery County, New York. History is not clear if the community was named in honor of Welling or for the famous English Duke of Wellington, hero of Europe's recent Napoleonic Wars. With the coming of the railroad, Wellington grew into an agricultural marketplace, and in fact was the nation's leader in cheese production from 1870 to 1900. The county fair, now located in Wellington, helps to continue the depiction of small-town America shown in native son Archibald Willard's famous painting, The Spirit of '76. In 1818, Joseph Sage and the family of his son-in-law, John Lubbe, journeyed through a severe winter from Connecticut to their new homestead in Huntington Township. More pioneering families came to the area, and by 1822, the population was such that the Medina County Commissioners incorporated the township using the Huntington, Connecticut hometown of many of the settlers as its new name. Lumber, grain, and cheese dominated the local economy. In 1824, when Lorain County came into full operation, Huntington was transferred from Medina County. The citizens of Old Russia Township, that had been first settled in 1818, requested detachment from Black River Township in 1825. The town and college of Oberlin were founded in 1833 and would grow to dominate the area. The Oberlin concept combined a Christian community and a Christian coeducational institute. Through the influence of founders John Shippard and Philo Stewart, New York businessman Arthur Tappan, and noted evangelist Charles Finney, the college would become not only co-ed, but also multiracial and the nation's leader in the abolitionist movement. The independent spirit that created the first Russia Township was evident once again in 1992, as New Russia Township detached itself from Oberlin. In 1820, the Peter Penfield family began the permanent settlement of the area he had first selected in the fall of 1818. Penfield Township's organizational election was held in April of 1825. The first religious service was held in 1826, and the first school was in session in the summer of 1829. The township's first post office put the emphasis on post and not the office. As the Penfields lived well off the established mail route, a hollow tree near the river was used by the local residents for sending and receiving the mail. The township, with its fertile soil, grew into a part of Lorain County's rich agricultural heritage. In the fall of 1820, Abner Loveland Jr. became the first permanent settler of Brighton. Within a year, the families of Joseph Kingsbury and Abner Loveland Sr. had arrived, and the new community began to grow. With elections held in the spring of 1823, Brighton Township was being organized at the same time the area was being transferred from Medina to Lorain County. Like much of the new county, Brighton was essentially agricultural. Although Pittsfield's first settlers arrived in 1813, the area was considered too dangerous because of the British and Indian activity connected to the War of 1812. By 1820, the land was surveyed, and Milton Whitney became the owner of a large parcel. Whitney arranged for the Waite brothers of Russia Township to become the first permanent settlers in the spring of 1821. By 1831, there were enough residents to request that the county incorporate a township independent of Wellington. Pittsfield was chosen as the township's name to honor the Massachusetts hometown of many of the area's pioneers. LaGrange Township's first settler was Nathan Clark, who in the fall of 1825 established his new homestead on the east branch of the Black River. By the summer of 1826, 14 more settlers had arrived. The name LaGrange, which is French for the farm, was chosen to honor French General Lafayette, as it was also the name of his country estate. In 1827, the area was separated from Carlisle Township and reorganized with elections in April into the new township of LaGrange. By 1875, the center had grown into a village, also incorporated as LaGrange. The pioneer settler of the Camden area was Leonard Clark. Over the next 4 years, other families moved into the area, including Roswell Babcocks, who built the first frame house in 1833. Early on, the area was divided between Henrietta and Brighton townships. In 1835, the new township of Camden was created by the county commissioners, and the first elections held in April of 1836. When the first post office was established in 1835, the community was called Panelize. The name was changed to Camden, then later to North Camden. In 1852, the Lake Shore and Michigan Southern Railroad called its station Binghamton, but that was soon changed as the town adopted the name Kipton. Kipton's more important connection to the railroad was a tragic collision in 1891. The wreck was instrumental in the creation of standardized or railroad time. Rochester was the last township within the present-day boundaries of Lorain County to be settled. Stephen Babcock brought his family from Massachusetts in the spring of 1832 to settle on land he had prepared the previous year. The area grew quickly, and by 1835, the commissioners formed a new township with the first elections held in April of 1836. The township's farming and related businesses grew with the population. By 1880, close to 700 citizens lived in the area. The population shifted from Rochester Center to Rochester Station when the Big Four Railroad came through the township. The small-town boom would turn to bust when the railroad eliminated Rochester as a scheduled stop. The depot would be used as a schoolhouse, as the home of the Rochester Rod and Gun Club, and today as the home of the Rochester Historical Society.
There, here, have a treat, okay? No one can deny the loving devotion we get from our dogs, and I think we all agree we get back more love than we give them. I'm Dick Goddard. I'm reminding you, if you share your love with a dog, you'll never regret it. There's really nothing like a dog to spark up your life, whether you're a youngster, a senior citizen, or somewhere in between. And dogs have a whole lot of affection to share. Okay, is that good? You don't have to go far to hear heartwarming adoption stories.
With my husband is like saying man's best friend. He truly loves that dog. He feels it's part human. It's his second daughter, as Erica said. It's definitely a prize. She's queen of the house, basically. She's a good lover. She gives us a lot of attention. She's a good girl.
We had a cat before we had Abby,
and Abby adapted very well. She is best friends with that cat. She will not harm that cat in any way. She's amazing. I love her. When I'm in bed at night, Abby will jump up with me and she will pull the covers back and she will lay under the covers and lay her head on the pillow just like a human.
I encourage anyone to go to the Lorain County Kennel to adopt a dog. It's given our family great satisfaction and a great reward.
After, you know, a bad day at work or anytime you come home, it's just always nice. They kind of turn your mood around when you come in the door, and they wagging their tails and jumping on you, and it's a great feeling to know that they're happy to see you and that they love you just as much as you love them. She is good with our other dog. She's good with people. She likes attention, and she likes to cuddle up with you.
It's funny when Lily, when you kind of discipline her sometimes when she does something bad, or she always seems to roll on her back and put her paws in the air and just look up at you with a sad look. So it's kind of hard to even get mad at her when she does something like that. So we kind of laugh at that.
And it's always amusing when she does get a spurt of energy and want to run around, and we're always like, oh my gosh, Lily's going to play now.
Yeah,
so
like sometimes, like when I'm on the couch or whatever, and she'll hop down, and she always like tries to bite her own tail, and then that kind of like keys on our other dog, Rocky, to chime in and try to, you know, bite at her tail a little bit, and then they start playing around a little bit.
One day we came home with some food from, I just really wanted a burger. So we had a burger, and I had it sitting on the tray table by the couch, and I got up for a minute and got a drink, came back, and Lily was licking her lips. She had eaten the whole thing, and I was not very happy with her. So I screamed and told Kurt to come down and get her away from me because I was just so upset. But we both lived, and I was fine afterwards. One of the best things about adopting a dog from the kennel, at least for us, was, again, just giving this dog, who knows what would have happened to her, a new life, and also giving our other dog a companion during the day. It's just fun to have the two dogs and take them for walks and watch them play, and it brought us closer as well.
You know, it just makes you feel better as a person that, you know, you're giving a dog a better chance to live a life.
Actually, I enjoy the exercise because I need to, trying to lose weight. Salem makes me get out of the house every day, and so I have to take him for a walk, even if I don't want to. And he's not that much trouble because he was pretty much housebroken when I got him from the pound. I really like the older pet because Salem was kind of, whoever had him before, they really kind of housebroken, so I didn't really have to go through the potty training deal. I just had to let him out and find a place for him to go. And I think older pets, especially for people who don't have children, are kind of good because Salem, he's real playful, but he's not, he gets tired and he lays down and he doesn't want to be bothered, and that's fine with me. So he's not always wanting to play, you know, because puppies have a lot of energy. And Salem has quite a bit of energy, but sometimes he just lays on his pillow and he's like, don't bother me, I won't bother you. And sometimes when he wants to play, and that's okay. I got Salem at the Lorain County Dog Pound. I found him on the internet, actually. They had his picture on the internet, and so I called and he was still there, and so I immediately went over and looked at him. We went outside and played, and he jumped in the car and wouldn't get out, and there we were. So we were on our way home. So it was love at first sight. He's a very good companion. I can always depend on him to be here and greet me with, you know, open arms when I come in the door. He's very protective of me, and he lets me know when anyone is outside or in the driveway. So I feel safe with Salem. You know, even though he's a small dog, he gives me a safe feeling just in my own home. If I'm having a bad day sometimes and I'm just not in a real good mood, you know, he'll come up and snuggle up to me like, hey Mom, it's okay. I think other people should adopt a pet, and even an older dog. The Lorain County Pound has so many wonderful dogs. All you have to do is go over there and look. I mean, even now, I still go on the website and I tell Salem, don't you want a little brother or sister? Because they have all these little cute dogs over there, and they all need good homes. And if you're looking to adopt a pet, I suggest you try the Lorain County Dog Pound first. I mean, you pay for the license and just a nominal fee, and you got a great dog and a great companion and somebody that's going to be in your life for the rest of your life and they'll love you no matter what.
Give the Lorain County Dog Kennel a call or check their website for photos of currently available dogs. Remember, your best friend is just waiting for you.